Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented by Pucks and Pitchforks blog at pucksandpitchforks.com. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live at Let's Go Devils Pod, on Twitter Live at Let's Go Devils Podcast, Twitter Live at Let's Go Devils Pod, YouTube channel Let's Go Devils, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. Big podcast tonight. We've got Corey Masisak of The Athletic and Chris Ryan, formerly of NJ.com. Nick, it felt like a football game last night. Devils winning 7-3, 5 points in the last 3 games. Special teams was awesome yesterday. They play the Islanders tomorrow, the big bad Boston Bruins on Saturday, and those New York Rangers on Sunday. They're getting hot. They're getting hot. Boo to all of them.
But especially boo to the Rangers.
Yeah, especially the Rangers.
I gotta say, Sam, before we get into all this, so you have this laptop, right, that you sent me?
Yep.
And I probably should have told you about this off air, but it's making this squeaking noise 24/7. And I thought that during the podcast it wouldn't do it, but in case anybody hears a weird squeak, I don't own a duck now. The Sam computer is now just squeaking like a duck.
So are you
like
trying to
duck,
tell me before I make my Florida, before I pack up the Woo-mobile on the Florida trip, that I should bring a laptop and do a little maintenance at the Villano household?
I think you should call it the Volkswagen. I think that's
Okay.
a better name than the Woo-mobile. But
okay.
No, honestly, it's like there seems to be nothing wrong with it. It's just making a funny noise. It's trying to talk to me. So if the audience is wondering why it sounds like there are baby ducks in my house, that's why. But anyway, how fun was last night? Last night was a ton. Like that was the most fun I've had watching Devils game in a long time. And honestly, like we got to this weird point in the season where it's back to frustrating Devils hockey. Where it's like, oh my god! Like there's time, and even last night there was a spot in that game where you're like, I don't want to watch this. This is just frustrating, And the Devils were getting outplayed, they were getting outmanned, they were getting outmatched. The skill just didn't seem the same, and it's not because it's not the same. This team has skill. The power play, it was weird. Because that first power play where was it Johnson, I guess, who scored that first goal? It's Johnson now, by the way, apparently. For anybody who wants to call me out on Twitter.
Johnson and Brott.
Johnson and Brott.
Yeah, Johnson and Brott.
Wait, who was it? It was you that said they were trying to get the German the
Johnsonville
the advertisement.
Brats.
Yeah, you were trying to get the Brott sponsorship. Yeah, let's get some sponsorship deals. Oh yeah, I was listening to you and you on the post game show, the Devils After Dark, and you guys were talking about it. So it was just funny. But I mean, listen, the Devils have been kind of the catalyst for the ESPN broadcast so far. We've had 3 of them already, 3 exclusive ESPN broadcasts, and you kind of get, I love having Kevin Weeks on the broadcast. But the reality of the situation is when you get somebody in the broadcast this early in the season, at least people have 2 and 3 games maybe under their belt. I bet you a lot of them didn't even get a lot of, play-by-play time in the NHL before this because, I don't think I would doubt that ESPN was doing like practice rounds or anything like that. Hockey is one of those things you just kind of get to throw yourself into it. And, I know I've brought up before that I was the play-by-play guy for West Virginia hockey when I was in college. And
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, I was a play-by-play guy for West Virginia hockey back in the day, and it's hard. And we were at ice level. So I had a much easier look. Like, I'd be up there if I was Ken or Cangelosi, and they do a great job. But like, if I was one of the new people, I'd be up there with binoculars, trying to look down and looking like one of the old dads at a 1990s Yankees game, looking down with his binoculars.
Well, sorry, I was just checking the roster list. Who goes first at 8:40, and I noticed it's 8:38. So sometimes, sorry, Nick. Sometimes as the producer, I gotta know when to make the phone calls. Looking at social media, also article. There was an article that came out yesterday by Sam Kassan, the New Jersey Devils. Talking about Earl, and he cited and referenced our Let's Go Devils podcast interview with Dancing Earl. And just want to thank him for doing that because, it tells the whole story about Dancing Earl, and the Devils did a nice tribute yesterday. Very classy, and obviously he's going to be missed by all from New Jersey Devils fans. And it's just good to see some of the comments that people have made on social media about Dancing Earl. He is the epitome of what is right about the New Jersey Devils and in Newark. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate the Devils in that. We rag on the Devils team, their media team sometimes. Let's be, we have friends there, so we do it out of love.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate them recognizing that we have been on this beat, and we too try to get the soul of this franchise as much as we possibly can, as well as trying to get outside views of it. We definitely get guests from the outside, but we do like what your Sunday show does a really good job of getting the soul of this Devils franchise and this Devils fan base.
Exactly. Hey, speaking of soul, I'm going to get Corey Masisak and each of our guests, I'm going to bribe them to go to Taj Lounge 973 for pregame because the Catfish is 4-1 when we eat that at Taj before the game. Just wanted to put that out there, Nick.
You can't beat Catfish like that. You really can't. And the Panthers showed that. Oh, the Cats. The Cats couldn't beat us when we have the Catfish. So every time I think we play the Panthers on Sunday, I think, or Monday. We play them again within a week. So next time we play the Panthers, let's get the Catfish again, so we can just it's the best way. You don't want to. There's nowhere to eat cat. Nobody wants to eat cat, but you can eat the Catfish. It's the next best thing. Looking in the comment section, lots of brat talk and brat talk, and how do we even say these names anymore? I don't know. Listen, I always bring up the Tyrod Taylor scenario where after 10 years in the league, he kind of told everybody the real way to say his name, Tyrod. So that kind of went, we're going to say these names wrong. And a lot of these players, when they're rookies and second-year players, just kind of let it roll off their back, and they just kind of go with it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Pavel Zacha. We'll be saying these names wrong or Americanizing these names for as long as there's hockey. So for now, I'm going to do my best, and if I'm told about how to say a name correctly, I'm going to try my best to say it correctly. Mike Rossi in the comment section, last night's game, there's only one song that fits how that game went: Demolisher. Yeah, Demolisher by Slaughter to Prevail. I have no idea what that song is, Mike, and I don't know if anybody else does, but this title sounds like, the Devils came out in the third period with a 1-goal lead, blew it immediately, and then they tied it right back up. So, or was it the second period? I'm getting lost. Oh no, so that's what happened in the second period. They went in with a 4-3 lead. And then they just went off to the races and scored 3 goals in the third period. A huge effort from the Devils after kind of a ho-hum road trip. There wasn't a lot that I loved about the road trip. I liked how the goaltenders played. Blackwood and Bernier doesn't look like a really good pair. Blackwood didn't have his best night on Tuesday, but besides that, it was a pretty good performance by Blackwood since his return.
Well, he got the win, didn't he? That's all he needs
got
to
the
do.
win.
Yeah,
a win's a win.
Yep, exactly. As far as I'm concerned, the Devils got 2 points and the Florida Panthers got nothing. Anyway.
Sure.
So I was talking to Corey Masisak off air, explaining to him the whole Taj Lounge 97.3 and the free food that we're going to be showering him. So that's why it took a little bit longer to get Corey on. There's nothing better than feeding our friends of the podcast. You know him as Corey Masisak. He's the Devils beat writer for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at CMasisak22. Corey, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're good. Corey, you're one of the busier men at The Athletic today. You had a stint on the Jeff Merrick show. You're now the fourth guest we've had that's been on either the Greg Wyshynski's show or the Jeff Merrick show before coming on here later that day. So I feel like we're just kind of like, when they have the main event at like boxing matches and then they have those weird undercards after the main event, that's kind of our podcast. That's how I feel like for some of you guys.
Well, it's now that the Devils have won a few games, I think people are. I mean, it was one of the things like Jeff even said off the top that like it doesn't seem like people are talking about them, and now all of a sudden everyone looks up and it's like, wait a minute, they're 6-3-2, and things are looking up.
Yeah, and they've looked. Last night obviously went amazingly. And I'm not going to make any Hogs to Truffles references. My brain doesn't work like Jeff's does. But I will get straight to the questions, though. It feels like correct me if I'm wrong. You're seeing it a little bit more up close, and you're seeing the practices more. But it feels like since the Hughes injury, and then especially after Dougie Hamilton got injured, they've looked like, I don't want to say the worst team, but they look like they're just keeping their head above water for most of the game and then find a way to either tie it late or take the lead in the third period. And it seems like they're in survival mode a little bit. Is that what you're seeing with all these superstars out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be hard for any team. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. Like, there are maybe 3 or 4 teams in the league. Like, okay, the Avalanche are going to play a couple weeks here without Nathan McKinnon. They're going to be fine. They're the Avalanche. They've got lots of good players. And like Tampa would be okay if they, obviously they played an entire season last year without Nikita Kucherov. But like for the rest of the league, I mean, losing your number one center and your number one defenseman is a big deal. So, like it, whenever the season started, it was like, okay, we're going to focus more on the results. Still care about the process, obviously, because over the long haul, that's going to matter. But like, it's the results are going to matter a lot more this year. And I mean, it has really been a weird year where, like, if you told everyone on opening night that, hey, Jack Hughes is going to play 4 periods, and Dougie Hamilton is going to miss 3 games, and they're going to be 6-3-2. I mean, that's pretty much about as good as you could expect. Now, on the other hand, there have been lots of games, as you mentioned, like there have been games where they just doesn't feel like they're playing very well. The schedule was pretty easy. Even, I mean, getting one of the best teams in the league last night, but on the second half of a back-to-back with their backup goalie having to play both games, and so they've had some advantages that are probably going to go away here over the next 8 or 10 games. But I mean, if the results are going to matter as much as they are, then I mean, and they want to just hang around as long as they can, they're certainly doing that at this point.
So when I'm writing, I always mention the Hughes injury and the Hamilton injury. They seem like the bearers. And then it seems like I go next to they had to deal with both goalies being injured. And then I go to the defensemen, like the Smith injury, the Severson injury. And one that always seemed to I don't know if it's because he hasn't played the entire season and he didn't play most of the preseason, and we kind of didn't expect him to miss that much time, but now he is missing a ton of time, is Miles Wood. I didn't think about how much his absence is going to impact this team. It's clearly having an impact on the bottom six. Do you think, they've tried a couple things with Student each. They tried, now they have Tice Thompson up. Do you think there's somebody in-house or in Utica that they can have replace that production of what Wood does between the physicality and also the offensive, the goal scoring?
Yeah, probably not, to be honest. I mean, for as much as he's had some up years and some down years, and I think people have been frustrated by, how many chances he creates versus how many he actually finishes. For a guy who, I mean, there were a few games last year where you could say he got second line minutes, but for a guy who almost never leaves the top six, never leaves the bottom six, to score, he had 19 goals the one year. He had 16 or 17 last year. That's a lot for a guy. I mean, if fourth line guys don't score 17 goals in a year, and he scored a lot of them at even strength last year. I don't, I mean, Nolan Foote has the size and he's got good hands, but he doesn't have, obviously he's not anywhere near Miles's speed. Tice Thompson's pretty quick, but I mean, they just don't have anybody. Studenic is probably the closest guy they have in terms of top line speed, but he honestly doesn't have the skill that Miles has. People don't, I think people knock Miles's overall skills, but that's relative to great NHL players. Whereas if you're comparing him to guys in the AHL, he's light years beyond them. So, I honestly, I think just adding Jimmy Vesey has helped the bottom six a lot. Obviously, having Dawson Mercer play as well as he has definitely helped the overall depth of the team. But if you're specifically looking for, a guy who is gonna fly around and get on people's nerves and score 15 goals, I don't know if they necessarily have that hanging out waiting to join the team.
So if you're Tom Fitzgerald, would you? I mean, there's a couple teams that they're looking real bad. Montreal, Chicago, and Arizona, and they have a couple of interesting guys that would fit the bottom six. Are you looking to make a move right now, or are you just kind of letting the pieces fall? Kind of being a little too early to start making moves like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team is in that phase right now where they're sort of just looking around, taking note of the fact that there are some teams that are probably already out of it. I mean, it's early enough. Whenever the Devils sort of saw that the one year where they lost all those games to start the season, it gets early quick whenever that happens, or it gets late quick whenever that happens. But yeah, I mean, it's just really hard for anybody to make any moves right now. I would say that obviously it's, they're on one hand, they're just trying to survive until Jack comes back, which is, could be mid-December. On the other hand, I feel like if they do get to December or, say Thanksgiving or around there, and they're still hanging around and things are still going pretty well, a move like that, if they felt if they felt just adding one more kind of physical guy who can score some goals in the bottom six was a thing. I mean, you could do that without giving up anything too significant. Then I think that's probably something that they would be interested in for sure.
Yeah, we've seen them do that before, where they give up a 6th-round pick for a guy who's an NHL caliber player, but somebody who's somewhat on the healthy scratch line, just to kind of add that depth. So we'll see. It's something that's interesting to kind of look at. Now the real key to getting these points that they have and kind of keeping their head above water is that everyone in the Metropolitan Division is in the same. I mean, the Rangers are off to a scorching hot start. They do have more games than anybody, but seeing them in second place in the league, and then seeing the Flyers play as well they have, and seeing Steve Mason, I don't know if he's played since, but last time I checked, he had a .950 save percentage. And Carter Hart's looking really good again. Seeing the rest of the Metropolitan Division, and then Columbus playing really well. So seeing the rest of the Metropolitan Division play as well as they are, what's key? What is key for the Devils to survive in this division until December 15th or whenever Jack Hughes gets back?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I feel like it's probably just how good the division is probably just going to keep the pressure off of anything. I mean, even it doesn't. It almost feels like even if the Devils rattle off, let's say they win like three of the next 4 games or 4 of the next 6 or something like that. I mean, the schedule's really hard, so it's entirely possible that they'll lose the next 5 of the next 6 or whatever. But let's just say that they do keep winning. Like the rest of the division is so good. Slash even the teams like Philly and Columbus are playing above their heads at this point. Maybe it just. I mean, that might almost be sort of an advantage where they just are sort of hanging around and no one's really paying attention. Um, but I mean, honestly, like the yeah, the key. I mean, to me, it's the goalies. I mean, that's like. I mean, obviously Nico Dawes had the one good game, and but just having those two guys back and playing, if they, I mean, if they can play those two guys, let's just say every game the rest of the year, one of those two guys plays every game, um, they just have it that like their floor is just much higher than it's been probably at any point over the past few years, just because those guys are just. I mean, we've seen it kind of play out already. Like they weren't very good against the Kings, and I mean Mackenzie Blackwood, got them at least a point probably just based on they could have been down 4 or 5-2 in that game pretty easily, but he played really well. And then the Sharks game, they didn't play very well against the Sharks either, but they ended up getting those 2 points there, and Bernier was a huge part of that. So I mean, I think that's basically for any team that's like dealing with injuries. I mean, the goaltending is kind of the great equalizer. So just getting good goaltending or even really good goaltending can make even a team that doesn't have that much talent competitive. So I mean, I think there's obviously there's 7 other things that they could do, namely score more power play goals, which started last night. They need other guys. I feel like they've got a few. There was a point a few games ago where it was like, man, they've got like 7 forwards who aren't going right now, and I think some of those guys have gotten going. Like I think really the last couple of games, Nico has been awesome. I think Jesper Bratt's been really good. I mean, Pavel Bozaka just keeps scoring goals. That's pretty much even if you just look at him as sort of just a specialist who just scores goals, that he's doing that.
I'll take that. I will take that.
Yeah, I mean that's all. I mean, I don't. It's not like you listened to the thing with Jeff earlier. That's the thing with him. Right? Like in the moment right now, he is very valuable to the Devils because they don't have people who can score goals or don't score enough consistently, and he's doing it. So he is. They need every goal they can get, and as it doesn't matter how where they get them or how they get them. And so I'm still always thinking ahead, and I'm not really sure what that's going to translate into like, let's say with Zach's next contract. But for now, like where they're at this moment, he's very valuable to them.
Yeah, and you can't, and like it seems like the fan base has kind of turned the other way on Zaka. I think people are appreciating what he brings to the table. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but that I try to get a pulse of the fan base as much as I can. That seems to be the consensus, is that people are happy that he's here now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, like I said, all of these guys that it's sort of the thing on the horizon where it's like, okay, in the moment right now, how are Pavel Zacha playing? How is Jesper Bratt playing? And then even throw in Miles too. Now with the injury, kind of throws a whole different kind of loop into that thing. But it basically the direction of the franchise over the next 10 years is going to partially be dictated by which of these guys sign long-term contracts, which ones don't, how they replace them if they don't sign. It's that whole thing. So that I feel like that's just kind of always in the back of like just off center. Like that stuff is still out there. But for now, I mean, if you're just zeroing in on like the day to day, like Jesper Bratt has been really good, and Pavel Zacha is scoring goals, and they need more from Yegor Sharangovich. They need more from Yanni Kolkinen. They need more from Ty Smith. Just kind of et cetera, et cetera.
So, Corey, before I let you go, the reason why we contact you all the time because you're the Devils beat writer, and we love talking to you. But the thing that made me like, oh, we got to talk to Corey, was the Scott Niedermayer piece you wrote. I think it was a week ago, I believe. Just going in depth of the impact that his game had on some of the star players in the NHL and on the Devils. It was really interesting because the Devils have an interesting mix. Like, unlike the forwards, which is almost entirely people under the age of 24, the defensemen, it's a nice mix of young players like Ty Smith, prime players like Dougie Hamilton, Damon Severson, and then the older guy in Subban. So it's really nice to get everybody's perspective on a guy like Niedermayer, who was such a game changer. So what brought that article on, and kind of what was it like to kind of go through the process of writing that?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly something that I think I wanted to write something about Scott Niedermayer like 8 years ago when I was at NHL.com. I think what happened was I got into let's call it a spirited debate. Dan Rosen and I used to have very spirited debates in the NHL.com office. Still do whenever I see him, just about whatever. But so anyway, I think I forget exactly what it was. We were probably just talking about like, who the best defensemen of all time are, and like, you get past, the obvious guys like with it's Bobby Orr, it's Nick Lidstrom, it's Doug Harvey, and then okay, so then who's the fourth best defenseman? Who's the fifth best? And I think that was probably one of those types of conversations where I realized that people's opinions on Niedermayer, like where he fits in all that, are kind of very different. Like some people think he's one of the 10 best defensemen of all time, and then other people think, no, that's not possible. He didn't win enough Norris trophies or whatever. But so then I started covering the Devils, and it was like I knew that I wanted to write a story about him at some point, because even just from that was probably in, like, let's say in 2012 or something like that. Even from 2012 until to now, I feel like the perception of Scott Niedermayer as a player has changed for the better. Like it's really weird that doesn't happen to very many players, where like they stop playing and people like appreciate them even more. And so, part of it was maybe like was him going in the Hall of Fame. Part of it, I think, was maybe even like some of the push to get Sergei Zubov into the Hall of Fame is also sort of indirectly like a thing about how great Scott Niedermayer was, because they're kind of similar guys. They were guys that probably should have gotten more notoriety whenever they were playing, just because of the style that they played. And I just always thought it was interesting that when they played together, like Scott Stevens was like the guy. Like he was like the most popular. And I thought it was just with that whole story, I thought it was really funny that like the one guy that I talked to, John Carlson, who like grew up going to Devils games, was like, oh yeah, Scott Stevens was my favorite defenseman. And then everybody else that I talked to was like, oh no, Scott Niedermayer was my favorite. I was like, yes, perfect. This is exactly, sometimes the story just works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that, and I'm not in any way saying that like, oh, Devils fans didn't like Scott Niedermayer in 2002. Of course they did. They love them. But like, I just think that I think it was pretty clear that Stevens was a slightly more popular player.
Yeah,
and
he
then
was the captain, he was the hard hitter, he was
all
the highlight reel,
all that stuff, right? So but then like as you get away from their careers, like I think I mentioned this in the story, in a weird way, Scott Stevens has sort of become underrated after his career was over too, mostly because people only remember the hits. In a weird way, they only see the highlights of the hits, and they don't remember the guy who had like 85 points one year and was just a monster for the Capitals.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, yeah. But it was something that I haven't. You always especially whenever you go to the draft, you always hear like, who do you model your game after? Well, for the past 5 or 6 years, everyone, I want to be Sidney Crosby, or I want to be Jonathan Toews, and you just always heard defensemen say like, oh, I like to play like Scott Niedermayer, or I guess some people would say Lidstrom too, but just the general like, the respect or reverence or whatever that like the young defenseman, and I think it's mostly like Ty is a little bit different because he grew up in Western Canada. He has like some ties to like just connections that he would naturally, even though he was like 5 or 6 years old, he would still sort of remember Niedermayer and like him. But like guys like Dougie, especially, like Dougie was a kid when Niedermayer was playing for Team Canada, and obviously he's maybe an extreme example because like he wore 27 and he was his favorite player. But there are just a lot of guys around the league around Dougie's age who just like Scott Niedermayer, and it wasn't even. It was maybe even more like the Anaheim version for some of them, given their age. But like people just wanted to be, those guys didn't want to be Scott Stevens, and they didn't want to be Chris Pronger either. They wanted to be Scott Niedermayer.
Yeah, and he made the Hall of Fame for a reason. He was probably one of the best. He's got to be up there with best defenseman of all time. I think at the time, it hurt that Stevens and Niedermayer and Brodeur played together, because I think it hurt all three of their cases for where they fit on kind of like greatest of all time lists, because they all obviously helped each other out, but having three of the best at their position together at one time, it's kind of like, I don't know if you watch basketball at all, but like the Warriors when they got Durant, it's like it kind of hurt Durant's case for best player, and it kind of hurt Curry's place for best player because they were together. But clearly they were up there,
I'm wearing a Warriors shirt as we sit here and talk to you.
Funny.
So yes,
Okay,
I've been a Steph fan since he was in college. So they've been my favorite team for a long time. But yeah, no, you're totally right. Like and for Niedermayer in particular, he was an offensive guy who played in a system that didn't necessarily promote offense all the time, or certainly didn't. Like I think Dano said in the story, like he probably gave up 200 or 300 points over the course of his career, but also he has 4 rings, and like there aren't that many defensemen who have 4 rings. So he's certainly happy with that sacrifice, and also I think just in general people have come around. Like even if you just look at the Norris Trophy voting now versus like I'll even say like whenever I first started covering the league, like in the mid 2000s, like it's very different now. It's not just here's the guy who has the most points or here's the guy who has the best plus minus or whatever. Like it's a different. Like if Scott Niedermayer was 27 years old today, he's Eric Carlson, right? Or he's Cale Makar, he may be even, a better version of Cale Makar if that's possible.
Corey, you got a lot coming up. You've been doing really well with all your articles this year, just kind of getting real creative with things, and you could see the you could see how much you're getting out of being able to get up close and talk to these players. It's been great.
Yeah.
What do you got coming up? What's some of the stuff that you're working on?
Let's see. Well, just before you called, I was watching some power plays from the past few games. I'm gonna try to write something. I wrote about like the first 10 games the other day, but I left the power play out on purpose because I wanted to give it its own deep dive, I guess you would call it. Just trying to figure out what are some things that they're doing wrong or can do better. I had like 3 or 4 different stories that were almost ready to go, and then Jack got hurt, and they kind of all involved him. So those ones are all just sort of waiting until maybe I've talked with my editor a few times about like, well, maybe we should just run one of them just to do it. So I don't know but yeah, no, that's like they're trying to focus on some things that they're doing well or not doing well for now, and then also like there's going to be something on like what Jack's contract might look like, or those kinds of things still coming in the future too.
Well, Corey, make sure everybody subscribes to Athletic. Make sure we tell you all the time, but we'll tell you again because it's just smart business. I heard Down Goes Brown has some fun stuff with the Olympics coming up this week too. So that sounds like a lot of fun. And you get all the great guys, and you get Corey. Corey's writing is worth it on its own. So subscribe to the Athletic. Follow Corey C. Masisak 22 on Twitter. And Corey, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime again. Thanks for having me as always.
Thanks, Corey. That is Corey Masisak of The Athletic. And we're going to do lunch one day or pregame meal at Taj Lounge 973. One day.
You're going to get somebody to take your offer. Oh, I just found out, Sam. Not only am I a go for a Devils game in December, I am confirmed. We still gotta buy the tickets, but I am confirmed. I forget the date. I think it's the 16th against the Knights. Not 100% sure, but Not only am I confirmed, the wife is confirmed.
Whoa!
And the father-in-law is confirmed.
Whoa!
It's going to be a family affair at the Devils game. All you
Hopefully I'm
fans,
not
be
off
nice to
that
my
day.
wife.
Hopefully I'm
you're
not
not
off
what?
that day.
Why would you
Hopefully
be
I'm
off?
not off that day.
Why would you be off? You're
I
never
don't
off.
know.
You're on. You were literally on every single day.
Yeah.
There's so
Although
much
I may
Sam
not be
Wu
at
in my
times
podcast
tomorrow.
feed.
Yeah, I'm just overloading the RSS feeds with our podcast.
You got it. Content is king. Content is king, my friend. So you're not doing a bad thing. No, but that was a great conversation. Oh, sorry.
No, I was about to say, but Steve Tardas the other day was complaining that there was no Woo report after we did 9 podcasts in 4 days. They want content.
They want the content, Sam, and if they want the content, you have to give them the content, right?
You gotta give them
you
the
gotta
content.
You got to give the people what they want.
Yes.
But yeah, so no, that was great to talk to Corey. It was great to talk to I listened. Everybody should also go out and listen to his interview with Jeff Marek today because it was a good one. It's nice that they're recognizing the Devils again, and unfortunately, we don't have a ton of beat reporters, as we will find out. We're going to talk to the former beat reporter, Chris Ryan, formerly of NJ.com, somebody who was doing really good work there, and we're going to talk to him next. And I do miss having, honestly, Sam, how many guys, we got Dan Rice there. He's working for us, doing the beat.
Yep.
And then Corey with The Athletic. And then there's a girl who works for the Hockey Writers who's on the beat. Who else is in that media room?
Oh, I don't know. Not many, right?
I know Rob Taub goes once in a blue moon, friend of the podcast, works for NHL.com, and he's worked for a couple places, but the New York papers don't send anybody. The New Jersey papers don't send anybody, which is a travesty. It's a travesty that the New Jersey newspapers aren't covering the New Jersey Devils. It is. I remember reading some of the best articles in the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger about the Devils. Now they're not going. So I'm not thrilled about it, but we don't have to get into it. Why don't you go get Chris Ryan? Why don't we talk to him and see what he's doing with his life now? And let's talk a little Devils puck.
Wait.
Okay.
Was I supposed to come back?
No, you were supposed to go, but you didn't say anything. So I was very confused. Go get our guest. We'll be good. I'll be here with the Twitter and the Facebook and the YouTube. Craig Best has an autographed rookie Niedermeyer card. My friend, you got to get that graded. That's some good real estate you have there. I didn't stop to say because was in a rush to get to the train to the Devils game. Didn't have a clue where I was going. I don't know what you're talking about, Campbell. So that one I'm lost on. But just to talk about the Niedermeyer piece again, with Corey, it was really a well done piece. Just he's talking to Dougie, he's talking to Subban, he's talking to Ty Smith. You kind of get a feel. There's only a few years in between the three of them. I think there's 4 years between Hamilton and Subban, and then I think there's 6 years between Hamilton and Smith. But just to see kind of the difference in eras and the difference in what they understood about Niedermeyer's game and all that. And I'm going to use this real quick to advertise. By December 9th is what I'm trying to do because I want people to have plenty of time to read it by the end of the year. I want to have my top 50 New Jersey Devils of all time list out. That is coming out by the end of this year. Top 50 New Jersey Devils of all time. That's going to be it's a fun project. I have the list. I haven't put it in order yet, but I have the 50 names that are going to be on the list, and it's a good one. It's going to be fun. Honestly, I thought I was going to have to reach into the depths of New Jersey Devils lore to find the 50 best New Jersey Devils of all time. But I didn't. There are some really good names at the bottom, like good names at the bottom of this list. Some were short timer New Jersey Devils players. Some were players who were fan favorites, but maybe didn't get a lot on the score sheet. So Sam, just so you know where we're at, I'm advertising that I'm doing the top 50 Devils players of all time. That is a list that's going to come out in December. It's been a fun one. I have the list. I have 51 names. So while I'm writing it, I'm just going to kick one off. It's going to be like Survivor.
Wow.
Pucks and Pitchfork Survivor. So that's what we're working on right now.
That's amazing. That's amazing content.
We're all about the content.
Yeah. You know what? We do this out of labor of love. We love our New Jersey Devils. We love our friends of the podcast. And oh boy, we have an old friend coming back on. You may know him as Chris Ryan, but now formerly of NJ.com. You can still find him on Twitter at Chris Ryan _NJ. And also, I did extended the same offer to Chris, like I did with Corey Masisak. Always welcomed at Taj Lounge 973. Chris, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. It's been a minute. We've missed you, Chris. So it's good to have you back. It's good to see you. You're once again tweeting about the Devils. We love the tweets. We love seeing you talk about New Jersey Devils hockey. So it's good to have you back.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a weird couple of months. With everything going on, started training camp. I'm normally jumping right in, and obviously that wasn't the case this year. So it was kind of weird to be watching from the outside, but good to be back with you guys and always talking about the Devils.
At least they didn't make you cover the Jets, right? Like that.
They've been there, done that. So 1 year was good enough. And I tweeted last week, I covered them for 1 year, saw them win 2 games, and apparently they had Mike White hiding on the bench the entire time. So where was he when we were watching Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco for a full season?
Yeah, no, that would have been much more exciting for you. A little Mike White piece would have been great, but you're moving past sports reporting. You got a new job, but you're still very passionate about the Devils. You're still tweeting about them. You're still talking about them. So I wanted to get your idea. I mean, you see how the beginning of the season has gone. It's been kind of a struggle, I want to say. I mean, I don't want struggle is a relative word because the past couple of seasons that have been terrible in the beginning, and this one, at least, the struggle is just the superstar injuries. Jack Hughes is out. Dougie Hamilton is out. But they still have a winning record, and not even hockey 500. They are above regular 500. So, Chris, what is your evaluation? Are you impressed by how they've played so far?
I am, because, honestly, I watched those first couple of games, and Jack looked tremendous through 4.5 periods, however long it was before he got hurt. And he goes down there like, oh, no, here we go again, because – you take him out of the lineup, and it's such a different team without him. So you think, okay, they're probably going to struggle for the first few weeks, however long Jack is going to be out. But they've tread water, and probably a little bit better than that going into November, still being over 500. So you kind of looked at going into the season, can they maybe be a fringe playoff team, maybe contend for one of those wild card spots? And without Jack and now Dougie for a few games, you thought, okay, that chance is probably going to be hurt a little bit, but here they are still kind of fighting around. And now if they can hang around until Dougie hopefully back in the short order, and then Jack maybe in December, if you're still in the race by then, maybe things can, continue to trend up.
So there's a couple players who haven't really trended up. Jesper Bratt came out of a slump. Zaka seems to be doing a lot better. Nico Hischier has been phenomenal the past couple of days, but the Ty Smith and Igor Sharangovich have not. Sharangovich was a healthy scratch yesterday. Ty Smith scored. He had a good night on the score sheet, but he still made a couple of plays where you're just kind of scratching your head. Are you seeing something? Is this like the typical sophomore slump that, is kind of a rumor in sports, or is there something more than that? Is there something? Can they bounce back? I know this is a loaded question, but what are your thoughts on Igor Sharangovich and Ty Smith's start?
I'll start with Ty because I think he's a little more explainable just because he missed most of training camp and then I think a game or two to be in the year. And I think people kind of overlook how important that, 3-week stretch is where you're going from, just off-season skating and training to kind of ramping up and getting ready for the season. And when you don't have that, I think that's such a big disadvantage. And then trying to jump right back in against guys that are fully revved up and ready to go. And especially for a young guy, that's even tougher. We saw a couple years ago when Travis Zajac missed, I think, the first month and a half of the season after he tore his pec during the offseason. And, he just never really even got up to speed. And that's a veteran guy, trying to jump into the lineup midway through November. So I think he'll come around eventually. He's young enough. And I don't think there's a ton of reason to worry about him in terms of getting it back. In terms of Sharangovich, I think the Hughes injury really hurt him. I mean, when he was going last year is because he was playing with Jack and, they had such great chemistry together and Jack can set him up for, those grade A scoring chances. And I think it's kind of just a matter of, compiling however many games now without a goal. And he's probably a guy who might just need one to go in for him and he could probably be fine and turn things on again. I think it was a year ago. He was a healthy scratch at one point for 1 or 2 games, and after he came back in the lineup, he turned it on and never looked back. So maybe a game or two off could help him. He could jump back in, but I think he'll be fine in the long run. But it might just be a little bit before he kind of finds that touch again.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. But hopefully when Jack comes back, maybe that'll get a little bit better. Speaking of top line wingers, Devils called up Alexander Holtz after a really good stint in Utica. I still have to remember not to say Binghamton, but in Utica. He had a really good stint in Utica. And he's played 3 games in the NHL. They've come with varied results. He was really good yesterday, though, once he got put on the top line with Nico and Zaga. What's your evaluation of Alexander Holtz so far?
That's tough. I just got used to saying Binghamton over Albany, so Utica's a big change too. I mean, he gave the Devils no choice with the way he started in the AHL to call him up. I mean, I know he was right on the bubble at the end of camp, and I get why they sent him down. But when you get off to a start like that, and your power play and overall scoring is struggling, they had to call him up. So I know he got that first point last night. He was really close to getting his first goal at the end of the game. Just a couple of great saves by Spencer Knight on the doorstep against him. So I think he can add, that spark the lineup, a guy in the power play who's going to get his shots. And, if he keeps getting them, they're going to start to fall. So just another thing to be excited about, a guy who brings something that not a lot of guys have with his shot. So I think he will bring an element, and we'll see if he could stick around in New Jersey for the entire year. I wouldn't be shocked if he maybe hits a little rough patch and goes back down for a little bit, but he's got the chance now and he's going to keep getting games to, put up points and stay in the lineup.
Would you keep him there? Like, what would you do with Holtz? Would you keep him there? Would you see where he does or cross the lineup, or would you just let him cook in Utica?
I think if he can carve out a top 6, even top 9 role and get the consistent ice time and be on the power play and he's productive there, I think he definitely keep in New Jersey. The one thing you don't want is him playing on the 4th line, getting sheltered minutes, not that much ice time, when he could be, playing 20 minutes a night in Utica and racking up the goals and building that confidence. It's a fine line because you obviously want the guy to not have the, lack of confidence by being sent down again, but you just have to make sure you're using him in the right way and giving him the chance to succeed in the NHL and getting the points that are going to help him establish himself in the league.
So I gotta ask about the power play because you brought it up, and it was a very natural way to bring it up. It was talking about Holtz on the power play, but his power play's been putrid. I mean, it was good yesterday, but it kind of felt like it was good in spite of itself. The chances they got came after some very bad power play. Is this power play Is it a product of not having Dougie and Jack? And do you think it's fixable? Like, do you think they fix this power play?
I think adding Holtz was a big way to kind of address that because, I mean, you look at the guys they were running out there, they don't really have a pure shooter in that NHL lineup without Holtz. You know, Zaki can shoot, and I mean, he's kind of gotten better at that. But, you know, Nico's not a big shooter on the power play. He's kind of that, you know, down low net front guy. Even Jack, when he's in the lineup, isn't a huge shooter. He's probably going to defer to the pass a little bit more. So I think just adding that element of Holtz can, you know, help balance out the group a little bit. And, you know, when the defense has to, you know, respect that shot, and it might open some other things up. So I think it's just kind of a couple of things like, you know, Dougie's obviously going to be a big, huge presence there when he's back in the lineup. And it's just a lot of guys that haven't been asked to, you know, carry the power play throughout their career. It's always been, you know, Palmieri or Taylor Hall with these young guys when they were coming up. Now they've got to be the ones that are, you know, carrying the load and getting the shots off and putting the puck in the net. So it's probably something that'll take a little bit of time for that to fully, you know, be a better unit.
So let's talk about expectations. Like, you know, we all came into this season with certain expectations for this team. Obviously, they were a little higher. You know, spending $9 million on a defenseman usually does that. And Jack in year 3. And there's a couple reasons why you thought this season was going to go to better than seasons past. Now we're about, I think we're 10 games into the season. Where is your meter for expectations now? Do you expect better of the Devils than what you did going into the season? Do you expect worse? Or are you about the same? Where are you on the expectation meter?
They're probably about the same right now, and that's kind of with the caveat that if Jack is healthy right now, Dougie's healthy right now, they'd probably be a little bit higher given the start they're off to. But I think with Jack still, you know, probably at least a few weeks away from coming back, Dougie maybe this week, I think you kind of can see them treading water, staying, you know, in the race. And it's kind of weird with the Metro that every team is over 500 at this point right now. So, you know, there's no margin for error at the start of the season. You lose a few games in a row, you're going to be at the bottom of the division. So I think they're still a team that can, you know, stay competitive, maybe go on a run and push for a playoff spot in February and March, or I should say March and April because of the Olympic break this year. But it'll be interesting. I think they've got to, you know, still step up a little bit without Jack. And, you know, if they're in position when he gets back, great. But if not, they're going to have a pretty tall hill to climb.
Yeah, I think that's true. Do you still see the breakout from Jack Hughes this year? Do you still think he's going to have that huge superstar season?
After 1.5 games, I would have said he would have, and now you kind of have to factor in, okay, he's going to be hurt. It's going to take him a little while to get his legs back under him, even when he does get back in the lineup. I still think he's going to take a step this year in terms of where his final numbers are. And I mean, you hate to put so much weight on 2 games, but he just looked like he was ready to, you know, have that breakout year. I know he was the most talked about guy in terms of breakout candidates across the league. So I think he'll, you know, be ready to continue taking that step. Maybe he's not going to be that 80-point guy just because of the injuries, but I still think he'll be, you know, atop the reasons why the Devils can look forward to the rest of this year and beyond.
So it's funny. Somebody on Twitter actually just shared a strange stat that I guess the last year's Devils started 6-3-2 and then went on a very bad streak, losing 12 of 14 because of the COVID outbreak and everything else. Do you see it different in this team? Do you think this team is better than that team from last year that kind of just fell in the tank?
I do. And I mean, it's hard to compare the two just because, you know, you had 75% of the roster last year that was dealing with COVID, that had symptoms, and guys like McKenzie and Andreas Janssen, you know, had asthma-related symptoms, and, you know, they didn't fully bounce back from that. I think they won like 2 games out of the COVID break, and then, you know, fell completely apart with the schedule they had to play. So I think this year there's plenty of reason to think that they can sustain this a little more. Maybe they're not playing, maybe they won't finish at the point pace they're playing at right now, but I think there's much more reason for optimism for them to, you know, be more competitive and be in a better position. And having a guy in Bernier behind Blackwood, or however order where you want to put them, just makes them a better team to begin with.
Chris Ryan, What do you let the fans know what you're up to now? I know you're working. You know, it looks like you got a little bit of an upgrade there for where you're writing at. But what do you got going on right now? Where are you working at?
So I'm down at a company called MJH Life Sciences. It's a medical journal, and they do a lot of different stuff. So I'm just writing and editing for them. It's a big change for me, but something I've really enjoyed for the past couple of weeks since I started there. So much more kind of a 9-to-5 life, and still a little bit of crazy journalism hours, which is perfectly fine with me, but nothing like I was doing with the Devils and everything else I was doing at NJ.com. So with the way the last kind of year worked out, it was just kind of time for a change for me. And, I certainly miss being on the Devils every day. I kind of took for granted how much I knew about them and just being what I gained from being around them every day. But still fun to follow them, still fun to talk about them. So don't want to completely give up that aspect of my life, but I'm certainly happy to be doing something else and, enjoying every aspect of my life right now.
Well, Chris Ryan, so glad that you found a new muse. Also, side note, if you haven't seen it already, go to Chris's webpage, look at the photos, see the Halloween costumes that him and his wife put together. I know we're November, we're past Halloween, but the one of Leonardo DiCaprio, the laughing wine face, that one was my favorite. But if you haven't seen those, make sure you go check those out with Chris. But Chris, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you, guys. And if you want to picture it, you can imagine me walking around in that giant kite costume in a very crowded bar and people not being happy with me. So for that reason alone, that was my favorite costume.
That's one way to socially distance, is to have the kite to get people away from you. But thanks so much for coming on, Chris.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. That is Chris Ryan, formerly of NJ.com, with his new career. Very happy for him.
Yeah. We like people moving upward and onward.
And you know what? We mean what we say. When we say that they are good friends of the podcast, even after they move on, they're still coming on because they're a good friend of the podcast.
Listen, if Bill Simmons can have his weird friends from college come on his podcast all the damn time, we can have our friends come on, talk a little Devil's puck. I think it's good. It's good that Chris is doing what he's doing. Who knows? I'm sure.
And he's still invited.
He was good at what he
Taj
did.
Lounge.
He was good talking about the Devils, and he was a good reporter when he was here. So I'm sure, I will say this. I think this whole we're not covering the Devils by the New Jersey newspapers is short-lived. I think that they're making a mistake, and I think a lot of people are leaving what they're doing. Maybe they won't do as much travel, but I think they're going to have a reporter on the beat. To have no reporter on both the Bergen Record and the Star Ledger and the Asbury Park Press, no reporter on the beat is criminal. And we're going to keep talking about it. I see that talked about at least once a week, about how the newspapers aren't people there. And I don't think people are subscribing to the newspapers because of it specifically. I think they'll see the numbers. But for now, Chris found a muse, and Chris found something that he's really enjoying.
I used to subscribe to his texts. It was awesome for this podcast to prepare, because I felt like Chris Ryan was texting me personally. And every once in a while,
but he wouldn't he? He used to text back, right?
Yep. It was $4.95 or $4.99 a month. I buy a yearly subscription to Corey Masisak, the Athletic, and not only do you get Corey, you get all your sports, rumors. I love Corey Pronman's, prospect, rankings and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it is pure quality stuff, and that's what we do here on the podcast. We've had
a lot of athletic writers on here. We've had Prongman, we've had Scott Wheeler, we've had Corey Masisak, we've had like 3 or 4 others that are just slipping my mind. Is it Sean Gentili? Is that who I'm thinking
Yeah.
of? Does he?
Yeah.
No. We've had
I don't
him
think
on,
we've
but I
had
don't
him
think he
on.
works. No, we've had Sean Gentili on like a year and a half ago, but we had what? Oh man, it's. Oh, that's bad for me. But I'll have to go back and apologize.
You have to go back.
because
I mean, it's already been 136 episodes, technically 137, because it was just like
I don't know
99A
what
and
you're talking about.
99B.
I don't know what you're
Oh,
talking about.
okay.
Don't know what you're
All
talking
right.
about. That didn't happen.
But Nick, this is our final podcast till I'm in Florida next week. I'll be doing
let's go.
I'll be doing it from Disney World, technically.
There you go. Disney World.
Maybe I should do that.
Well, I would go live from Disney World. They'd probably be mad. The Mouse House would probably kick us out, but that's okay.
You want to
We'll
go to
take the
Disney
chance.
World? Should we try?
Let's go.
Let's try it.
Let's go fight a big-headed mascot.
Let's
Try to kick
go
me out
right
of the
ahead.
Mouse. Let's go. Let's go, Goofy. You tall son of a gun.
I actually have a Mickey Mouse costume somewhere in the studio.
You do. It's like I come from a Mickey Mouse organization. Do you know who I am? Anyway. All right, we're off the rails. Yeah, I think it's time to say goodbye, Sam. We had a big podcast. Lots of beat talk. We were beating the topic.
Absolutely. I mean, look, anytime you get Corey Masisak on and Chris Ryan, they know their stuff. And you know what? We've had a lot of crazy podcasts recently, but it's always good to get another perspective. And I think this team, and it's good to hear that Chris Ryan agrees to, like Scotty and I, this is a different team from last season, even though it's the same record. Even Chico pointed that out last night at Taj that, it's the same record as last year, but it feels a lot different, let me tell you. And last year's format was very different. Okay, you played the Capitals 13 times? I don't know. 8 times. Like it was a weird format, and then obviously the stoppage and all that. It was just different. You got anything to plug, Nick, before we go? Other than we'll be at Amalie Arena.
I had an interesting
November 20th.
Yep. Yeah, November 20th we'll be at Amalie Arena. I got the a couple pieces out right now. We got David Holliday wrote something on last night's game. I wrote something on last night's game specifically about Alexander Holt, and that's the blueprint to fix things. Talked about 3 trades that the Devils could make right now. That's why I asked Corey about it, is to promote my stuff.
Okay.
3 trades the Devils can make right now to replace Miles Wood. There's one like all over the map. There's one massive one. There's one medium-sized one. There's one that would cost basically nothing. So that's on this pucksypitchforks.com right now. And, Vinny's going to have a piece soon. Trey Matthews, our new writer, is going to have one soon. I saw it in the drafts. Friend of the podcast is now a member of Pucks and Pitchforks. So
excellent.
That's going to be fun. He's going to have one
excellent.
soon. So yeah, we got stuff coming.
That's great. Sorry. I got to reverse that.
You good?
Yeah, sorry. You know what? It's like sometimes when we take too long and the music's just about to end, I had to kind of loop it back, buy some time. Yeah.
Put the music back on the end.
Well, want to thank everybody tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be at Taj Lounge 973, but regardless, go there for the Devils take on the New York Islanders. We're going to have Game Day Live, Vinny Parisi and I, and Devils After Dark. Scotty and I will recap the game that was. All right, till next time, let's go Devils.